Chief Justice, I've got 10 o'clock.
All right, let's do it. Well, welcome everybody, and it's good to see everyone. I feel weird in saying this, but it does seem like it's been some time since we've been together. Please remember that these meetings are live streamed and open to the public, and the world is watching perhaps, and certainly members of the media might be involved in watching and hearing, and they're welcome. But just know that what you say may be louder than you realize. We do have certain members who are absent today. I know Judge Davis, Walt Davis from the Business Court is not here. I do want to welcome Senior Judge Mac McLean, who is in for Judge Melanie Cross, and also want to welcome our friend Chief Judge Beryl Anderson from DeKalb, who's here for Judge TJ Hudson, who, as you know, has announced that he has stepped down as the president of the Council of Magistrate Court Judges. We have three special guests who are here. I've seen two of them, but I know Senator Brian Strickland is here from the McDonough area. We have Representative Stan Gunner. Has Representative Rob Leverett joined us? I know he's expected, but we're glad to have Senator Strickland and Representative Gunner with us today. Ms. Clant, will you engage in the roll call for us, please?
You do it, Chief Justice. Presiding Justice David Namias.
I'm here.
Chief Judge Christopher McFadden.
Here.
Vice Chief Brian Rickman.
Here.
Chief Judge Brian Amaro.
Here.
Judge Wade Paget.
Here.
Judge Jeffrey Kite.
Here.
Senior Superior Court Judge Mac McLean from Valdosta.
Here.
Judge Sizemore.
Here.
Chief Judge Asha Jackson.
Here.
Chief Judge Christopher Brasher.
Here.
Judge Fletcher Sands.
I'm here, thank you.
Judge Robert Flournoy.
Here.
Chief Judge Sarah Wall. I believe Judge Wall's here. I saw her earlier.
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you, Judge. Chief Judge Jeffrey Bagley.
Here.
Excellent, great to have you, Judge.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Judge Jim Blanchard.
Here.
Judge Wes Taylor.
I'm here.
Judge Al Wong.
Here.
Judge Lisa Jones.
Here.
Chief Judge Greg Price.
Present.
Judge Kelly Wolk.
Present.
Judge Thomas Lakes.
Here. I'm here.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Quinn Casper.
I'm here.
Chief Judge Beryl Anderson.
I am here. Good morning.
Good morning. Chief Judge Willie Weaver.
Here.
Chief Judge Lori Duff.
Here.
And the President of the State Bar of Georgia, Don Jones.
Here. Good morning.
Chief, that completes the roll.
All right, thank you. Good to have everybody. If you look at the minutes that have been circulated, we actually have 4 sets. I am told if we don't do anything today, we need to approve the minutes from these past meetings. We have the February 1st, February 12th, March 1st, and March 15th minutes. If you've had a chance to review those, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Several motions and several seconds. Anybody opposed? Okay, those minutes will stand approved. And I do see now that Representative Leverett has joined us. So great, glad to have you here. And just in time, because our first item on the agenda is a update and a report from our legislative committee by PJ, Presiding Justice David Namias. And just before we get into that, I do want to thank our legislative team, Cheryl Coronas and Christine Butcher-Hayes, who works with us from the bar perspective. We don't get everything we ask from the legislature, but we get a very respectful audience, and they are doing what they are supposed to do, and they're doing it in a very respectful way. So we're grateful for the relationship that we have with the legislature and the level of scrutiny that they give us in an appropriate manner. I'll turn it over to you, PJ.
Thank you, Chief. And I know you inadvertently left out Tracy Mason on our team, but she's been our
inadvertently.
She's been our leader through this, and I want to echo that appreciation along with the work by the legislative folks from many of the councils, as well as in particular on a lot of the stuff I'm going to discuss. Judges Amiro and Brasher and Taylor and Paget, all of whom spent a lot of time down at the legislature and testified on many of these bills. The General Assembly adjourned on Wednesday, March 31st. We've got a report of the material and materials behind tab 2 in the briefing that talks about the items that Judicial Council took a position on during the session. And as you've probably heard, all of the items are key pandemic-related priorities were enacted. The most important was Senate Bill 163, which was sponsored by Senator Strickland, who we'll hear from in a moment. Representative Gunner carried it for us in the House, and it passed on the 39th day of the session. This was our top priority because it allows courts, superior and state courts on a county-by-county basis to continue to toll statutory speedy trial requirements when the judicial emergency ends. It requires a certification by the chief judge of the need that compliance with statutory speedy trial requirements would be impracticable based on consideration of a number of factors that are listed in the bill. It also requires that the certification include a plan for emerging from the need to suspend the requirements as quickly as possible. All of that has a public notice requirement, and the Chief Justice is authorized to suspend a certification if needed. It's important to point out it does not relieve the state and the courts from compliance with constitutional speedy trial demands, which need to be followed. It's also important to point out that in the legislative process, there was a sunset provision added, a 2-year sunset. The bill will take effect, assuming the governor signs it, on July 1 of this year. And unless a later piece of legislation removes the sunset, it will expire in 2 years on June 30th of 2023. So it gives the courts basically a 2-year window to try to work their way out of the backlog. Each order, each certification can be for up to 8 months. And a couple other things to point out. This will not be required until the judicial emergency order is terminated. So it's not something that even if the governor signs it and it takes effect July 1, will be needed until the Chief Justice's statewide orders end. And we're not sure when that'll be. It'll probably not be until after July 1 at least. Another thing to keep in mind is you will need to do a certification in compliance with the statute. The Council of Superior Court Judges, Judge Paget, is working on a model order that people can use, along with Darren Enns from AOC, who I should thank because he was kind of the principal drafter of the legislation. But that'll hopefully give you some guidance to make sure that your orders your certifications are fully compliant with Senate Bill 163. The other thing very important to keep in mind for state and superior courts is if you do want a certification, there are some statistical data that you need to include. Some of that is available through the AOC systems that we use statewide, but some of that may need to be gathered at the local level, like the number of speedy trial demands that are pending. And so start looking at those factors, or on lines 59 to 76 of the statute that's in the materials, and start thinking about how to gather that data. And AOC will be putting out through the council some more information about that. The other big piece of legislation that was enacted is House Bill 635. It actually turned out to be a compilation of a number of the proposals that Judicial Council supported. The principal sponsor was Representative Rob Leverett, who is going to be talking to us in a moment as well. Senator Strickland carried it in the Senate, and actually Representative Gunner, who's with us as well, introduced a couple of the bills that got rolled into 635. 635 was initially supported by the Council of Superior Court judges to make explicit the ability to allow judges to have jurisdiction when they're operating remotely, not from their courthouse and not even necessarily from within their territorial jurisdiction. Every other class of court, I think, added requests that got built into the bill so that all the classes of court got that kind of jurisdictional protection for working remotely. And then added into it became the alternative locations proposal that makes it easier for courts to contract with alternative locations if you need larger spaces to conduct particularly jury selection and jury trials. The old law required it to be a county-owned or leased space. Now it just requires a contract with the county, so you can use school and nonprofit and all kinds of other potential facilities. Once it's signed into law, again, we're waiting on the governor's signature for this. There also were two proposals that we supported. One to allow bench trials if the defendant is willing to waive a jury trial, even if the prosecutor would prefer a jury trial, the court has discretion to have a bench trial. It was a carve out for the 7 deadly sin crimes was added, but for a lot more trials, and this could be done before they can potentially be done as bench trials to help clear out the backlog. And on the other side of that, the prosecutors very much wanted greater authority to proceed by accusation rather than indictment. And again, the 7 deadly sins were carved out, but there's a lot more authority to get cases rolling by accusation once the governor signs this bill. The alternative facilities and remote jurisdiction parts of the bill are not sunsetted, but the bench trial and accusation provisions do have a 1-year sunset. So they are really for kind of use from whenever the governor signs the bill through July of 2022, unless we can convince the General Assembly that they're working well and should be extended. Switching to a handful of other things that Judicial Council supported, we've had a proposal for a couple years to update and modernize the Court Reporting Act and related statutes, particularly to codify the rules on digital recording. That legislation didn't get filed, but there were a number of discussions held, and we're hoping to introduce it in the next session, and the State Bar has also supported that proposal. There also is a pretty extensive proposal on petitions for review to change the process for review from lower tribunals to the state and superior courts, and modernize that. That again is a pretty extensive proposal that got put behind the pandemic proposals, but we're hoping to introduce that in the next session. And again, the State Bar has also supported that proposal. We've had a proposal for a couple years that was part of House Bill 620 to define gross and net settlements for settlements involving minors. It was rolled into House Bill 620, which GTLA was the principal supporter of, and got through the House, but then did not get out of on a Senate rules calendar. We're in a 2-year legislative cycle, so that bill will still be alive for next year. There's been a lot of work on it by the state court judges with conjunction with the probate court judges, and we're hopeful we can get that through in the next session. The Uniform Mediation Act, which became Senate Bill 234 and has been supported for several years now, both by Judicial Council and the State Bar, finally got through. We appreciate Senator Kennedy's sponsorship of the bill. Again, Representative Levitt carried it for us in the House, and it made it through on March 25th. So congratulations to the Commission on Dispute Resolution and the State Bar for their several years of work to get that Mediation Act enacted. And finally, House Bill 662 was a proposal supported by Judicial Council about surety bonds to try to extend the period. We kind of discovered to many of our, we were not aware that surety bonds no longer remain surety bonds after, if you don't try a misdemeanor within 1 year or a felony within 2 years. There was a proposal to extend those periods as well as correct what looks like a technical problem with the existing bond statutes. That got introduced in the House, but did not proceed further. Again, it'll be alive for next session, and hopefully we can get it through then. Again, looking ahead, please think about Senate Bill 163 and the statutory speedy trial requirements, because you're going to need to have a certification ready to roll when the judicial emergency ends. And so you really need to do some upfront work on that. You can talk to Tracy Mason if you have questions about that as we go forward. And then for the 2022 session, that process will begin pretty soon in July. As I take over as Chief Justice, Justice Boggs, as presiding justice, will take over the chair of the Legislative Committee. Justice Bethel will continue to assist him for our court. There tentatively, the date for the meeting, the first scheduled meeting of the Legislative Committee is July 21. And that'll be the date when any proposals from the councils or other Judicial Council entities should have a white paper ready for discussion and a potential vote at that time. And a reminder that council presidents serve as voting members and legislative chairs serve as advisory members. Tracy Mason will be sending out some additional information soon. So that's a report of the Legislative Committee. Are there any questions before we move on? All right. It was a very successful, from what we absolutely needed to get through standpoint. We had a very successful session. A large part of that, again, is due to the help of the 3 lawyer legislators that we have on this call, who I want to recognize and give them a couple minutes to speak to us. The first is Chairman Brian Strickland, who is a partner at Smith, Welsh, Webb and White and McDonough, served in the House for about 6 years, and then became a state senator. And as in this session, he was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I think my screen doesn't show everybody on, but I think Senator Strickland is on, and let me recognize him to just speak for a couple minutes.
Thank you, Presiding Justice. I appreciate the opportunity to get to share with everyone this morning. As you heard, this was a very successful session for Judicial Council. As Presiding Justice mentioned, we had several things that, as I was told back in January, no pressure from him, these are things that we have to get done. And as most of y'all are aware, well, everyone's aware with COVID, its session was still not at all normal for us. With the process we had in place, tensions were higher than normal, and it was more challenging than ever to get bills passed. And we were also more limited about what we could get done with time constraints we had with the process too. And so this was definitely a team effort. And I do want to recognize Cheryl And Presiding Justice, when you were talking about July and getting ready for next session, I looked at Cheryl's face and she had this look on her face like, here we go again already. And it's crazy to think we're getting ready soon again for session, but you did a great job, Cheryl and Tracy, both navigating this process for me, and especially with Senate Bill 163, I know with the House guys, and getting 635 done as well. And so it was not easy, as I said. You have the normal politics you have to deal with, the normal personalities you have to deal with. But, you know, this was my 9th year overall in the legislature. And it's always kind of been this way, but I think now I recognize it more than ever. We have so few attorneys in the process. And of the attorneys that we have, there are very few of us who actually go into a courtroom. And so most of the people, even sometimes on the judiciary committees that you're talking to, have no idea what goes on in the courtroom. And that makes it extra challenging. And there was also this attitude that kind of built up over time that, well, COVID was last year. Let's move past COVID. Let's not worry about more COVID bills at this point. And so we were also battling that. And so it was no easy feat. And I just want to thank you guys for all the work that you did in advance on this, and for us not giving up all the way to the end to get these bills done. And of course, I want to recognize, you're about to hear from them now, but the House guys that helped so much with this. It was great from my perspective, having Representatives Gunter and Leverett join us in the House, because those are two people who obviously have that practical experience and that real world experience. And they were very helpful in getting all these bills done. And Representative Gunter in particular, I think he had about 10 bills he tried to get out of Senate Judiciary Committee this year. And so he had lots of things he was carrying over to us. And so I'll stop right there. But Presiding Justice, thank you for your leadership. And if I can take just one moment, I know you're probably gonna do this more later, but I just want to especially thank Chief Justice Melton for your leadership, in particular this past year. One of the things I often say about Governor Kemp as well, you don't become governor, you don't become Chief Justice thinking about dealing with COVID-19. And the way you have navigated this for all of us this past year, you've helped us get through this. And because of your leadership, things are not as bad as they could have been for our whole system. We now see the light, and I just appreciate your leadership and look forward to your leadership in that position for Presiding Justice, and also look forward to working with you, Justice Boggs, in the PJ position moving forward as well.
Thank you, Senator Strickland. And you know what he said about lawyer legislators, and particularly trial lawyer legislators, is especially true in the Senate. And so we have called on Senator Strickland, Chairman Strickland, put a whole lot of weight on him, and he's carried that very graciously and very well. And on a similar point, let me introduce Vice Chairman Stan Gunter. Many of you know Representative Gunter, who is a freshman representative, but well known to many of us. He was the district attorney he was the district attorney. He now represents House District 8, which is Rabun Towns Union and parts of White County. But he was a longtime district attorney, president of the District Attorneys Association, executive director of PAC, and then before becoming a representative, served as a Superior Court judge for the Enoda Circuit for about 7 or 8 years. And so as much as anybody in the legislature, he understands the needs of the judiciary, and stepped right in to carry an awful lot of bills for us and for the state bar. And so Vice Chairman Gunter, we really appreciate your help. And you can expect to hear from us many, many times in the future, but let me recognize you for a few words as well.
Thank you, Presiding Justice Namias. I appreciate the opportunity that the council gave to me to, as a freshman, carry several of your bills through the House and over to the Senate. I also want to thank Chairman Strickland for being friendly to a freshman coming from the House over there. He was very helpful in the Senate Judiciary, and I was just happy that we could get these bills passed. We still have a few on the table that we need to work with, and hopefully we'll get those through in the next session. But that's basically what I wanted to say, is just thank y'all for the opportunity. It was a big learning curve, and I did have several bills to carry. But I had help from, like I said, Chairman Strickland, and also Representative Leverett. He got 2 of my bills attached to House Bill 635, and we were able to get those across the finish line to the governor. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. And we look forward to working with you and also with another freshman legislator, Rob Leverett, who has a general civil law practice in Elberton and has served on the library board and the Rotary Club and as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce down there. But, he was in his first year as a legislator and jumped right in to carry a number of these bills and to cooperate with the Senate in getting a lot of these things through. And so I think we have him on the call, and let me let Representative Leverett say a few words as well.
Thank you, Presiding Justice Namias. I'm a little older, so I'm a little more challenged with technology. Can you hear me? Have I unmuted myself?
I think we're good.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, I appreciate so much you and the entire council for allowing me the opportunity to help with some bills this year. As you noted, I was a freshman, so it was good to get that experience and also on things that I felt were so important. I appreciate also Tracy and Cheryl's help so much. Cheryl taught me, she taught me a number of new words, some of which decorum prohibits mentioning today, but the one she did teach me was a Christmas tree that 635 ended up being, and I was, just as I spit and cuss and sputter when I'm trying to get that in the house, I was spitting, cutter and spussing sometime when I was trying to get that one through, but we finally made it, and I was delighted that once it got to the Senate, we were able to add some of Judge Gunner's bills, and it sort of did a number of things that I was real pleased I had the opportunity to be involved in that. And want to also just say good morning to Chairman Strickland and Judge Gunner. I hadn't seen them for a while. Miss seeing y'all. I think several of my bills all went through Chairman Strickland's committee over in the Senate. So I'm sure he was probably tiring of seeing me, but I so much appreciated his support and help on 635 and some other bills I had too. So I just really do appreciate that so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to help the council with its legislative agenda. It was a great honor for me and a great experience, and enjoyed working with everybody, and hope to be of some service to y'all in the future.
Well, thank you, Representative Leverett, and I'm sure we will be calling on you. We also wanted to thank a few other lawyer legislators who aren't on the call, particularly Senator Harold Jones, Chairman Chuck Ostration, Chairman James Burchett, and Representatives Mike Walensky and Josh McLaurin, who were very helpful on a number of these pieces of legislation. And it's a long report, Chief, but this was some important work this year. And again, particularly as I look to follow you, I think the last few years we've really had some excellent coordination and cooperation among all the members of Judicial Council, all the councils and other entities. And this year it really showed how working together we can get things done. So thank you all, and that's it for me, Chief.
Thank you, PJ. It was a long report, but not too long, because every bit of it is important. Senator Strickland, Representative Gunner, and Leverett, we know that we have your phone number and you have ours, but we do value the ability to have straight face-to-face conversations and to win your support. We don't take it for granted that you will do our bidding, but we know that we have to win your support, and we're thankful that you give us a favorable audience, and we just can't thank you enough for that. So thank you for this great year. PJ, thank you for reminding me of Tracy's work. She is a bedrock for all that we do, and thank you, Tracy, for your excellence. So with that, let's move on to our next item on the agenda. We have a report from Justice Michael Boggs from the Budget Committee.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you for the opportunity to present to the council today. Are you able to hear me, Chief?
Yes, sir. Okay,
thank you. So let me start by saying that I'm going to be presenting a very brief presentation of the Standing Committee on Budget FY22 and amended FY21 budgets that passed the General Assembly this year. But before I get started, I want to say thank you to the PJ and to the Chief for their leadership. The successes that we were able to accomplish through the assistance of Chairman Strickland and Representative Gunner, Representative Leverett. The work of Tracy and Cheryl not only worked in the legislative arena, but worked so terrifically well, I think, in the budget process, not only for the court's budget, but for the Judicial Council budget, which I chair. And I echo the chief's comments about always having a receptive audience and a respectful audience at the General Assembly when we present our court's budget and the Judicial Council budget. In fact, it's really great engagement. I saw it again this year on issues that are very important to all of us on the Judicial Council. And important in the administration of justice in this state. So thank you for your leadership, Chief, and for the PJ and for everyone else. I also want to remind the members of the Judicial Council that we had for the first time new chairs in both the House and Senate. And I want to thank Chairman Hitchens in the House, Senator Kennedy, Chairman Kennedy in the Senate, and of course, Chairman Blake Tillery and Chairman Terry England for their assistance with the Judicial Council budget. And lastly, before I get into the numbers, always we could not do this in such a positive way without the assistance of our Chief Budget Officer at the AOC Judicial Council, and that's Malia Wilson. And Malia is online, but thank you, Malia, for all the work you do, and Cynthia for the work you do in preparing our budget presentations. So with that, I want to give you a brief overview of the amended FY21 budget. You should know that budget included a $106,263 increase in our 21 budget. Fairly small items in the amended budget. They included some increases to accommodate for salary adjustments to folks that make over $80,000. I won't go into each of those, but the AOC did receive funds to provide for the maintenance of the Georgia Courts Registrar. That is the repository of court professional records, like records of interpreters, for example. We received appropriations to get us through the fiscal year. And we also received some funding, and Chuck Boring's online, and he can speak to this if you have any questions, but he received some fairly small amount of funding, but to restore some personal service and operating expenses cuts that had been made in the year prior. So again, the amended fiscal year budget included an increase over the original budget of $106,263. You all have a memo that I sent to you at the beginning of April. It is found at tab 3 of your budget or of your meeting materials, and you're welcome to review that as I go through these numbers. More significantly, I will speak to the fiscal year 22 budget, which saw after conference committee and after passage a $1.2 million increase in our FY22 budget. Those items were as follows. We were able to get fully funded the weighted caseload study project that I know Judge Emerson has been working very diligently on, and I applaud Judge Emerson for his leadership there and many others that have been working on that. We had a $213,113,000 increase to fund the weighted caseload study project. In addition, you're all familiar, because I've presented this to you before, you're familiar with the Kinship Care for Families program, a grant program that the AOC Judicial Council administers, with grant recipients being predominantly Georgia Legal Services and Atlanta Legal Aid. I want to take a moment to thank Rick Rufio and Steve Gottlieb, the directors of those respective agencies, and their teams for really putting that money to great use in providing kinship care, legal services to these children across the state. Over 1,400 children now being served, with enormous savings in foster care avoidance and other such things. So you should know we asked for $100,000. The House gave us that. The Senate was very, very kind to us and increased it to $250,000. So we saw a past $250,000 increase in the Civil Legal Services for Kinship Care Families program. We are hopeful to get that number back to $750,000 per annum, which is what our original request was 2 years ago when that program started. Next, the Civil Legal Services for Victims of Domestic Violence program. You're all familiar with that program that provides services to these victims of domestic violence. Heretofore, prior to budget cuts, that budget was at $2.5 million. We're hopeful, and I'll give a heads up to Chairman Strickland and to others that we will be coming in asking for full restoration, I hope, for that program next year. We did get $175,000, so we inched back to gaining some of the money that we lost over the budget cuts, but that was a $175,000 increase. The Juvenile Data Exchange Program, you'll remember that committee had requested, and we had therefore requested funding of $243,945. That was fully funded. We're very appreciative for that program, which will really inform decision makers in our juvenile courts before they make sentencing and disposition decisions. So we're very, very proud of that funding. The Judicial Council Administrative Office of the Courts needed some funding for annualizing the Georgia Courts Registrar funding that we received a portion of in the amended budget. And so we did get the $75,000 needed to fully fund and perform and expand the services of the Georgia Courts Registrar, which will be very important to the people whose data are housed in that program. We also were able to get $21,600 for a one-time match for the Child Support Collaborative Grant Program, which is required as our match to that federal grant money. And then the JQC got some funding. Chuck's online and can speak to these, but I will briefly say that he was able to convince the legislature to provide some funding for 2 new attorney positions. So he received $251,114 for the JQC to fund 2 attorney positions, and then restored about $3,700 in previous cuts. As previously stated, all of that totals $1,256,567 to the FY22 operating budget. You should know that our entire state appropriated budget at the AOC Judicial Council is now $15,615,952. And I want to thank again the members of the appropriations committees and subcommittees for their very keen willingness to entertain our enhancement request for each of these very worthwhile programs. Lastly, I'll touch on next steps. Not unlike the legislation committee, which will be accepting white papers, you should know that the Standing Committee on Budget that I chair will accept white papers for both the amended FY22 and FY23 budget cycles. We'll be accepting those from May 3rd through June 15th. You will all get a meeting notification to the Standing Committee on Budget members by May 10th. And we're gonna present those enhancement requests to the Judicial Council for approval, we think, at the August 13th, 2021 meeting. That'll be a general session meeting. And then, of course, any enhancements approved by the council will then be submitted to the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget before the September 1 deadline. So, Chief, that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm very thankful for all of the assistance that the folks that I mentioned provided in getting what I think was also a very successful year, not only in legislation that we must have, but in items in our budget that are very important to ensuring justice and administering justice. So thank you, Chief, for the opportunity to present. I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Again, thank you, Justice Boggs. Can't overstate how well you've been able to navigate the waters here, and Malia has done a great job in shepherding us through this process. So thank you and congratulations to both of you. We have a report now from the COVID task force. I think we have Justice LaGrua on the call.
I'm on, Chief. Thank you.
Okay.
This will be short. The task force continues to meet, though thankfully not quite as regularly as we did a year ago. We are keeping up with trials across the state. They have started commencing, and they have been commencing successfully. Judge Lawton Stevens actually tried a murder case in Athens a few weeks ago. Fulton County has started jury trials. Hall, a number of counties throughout Middle and South Georgia. The amazing thing that I think we've all realized is we were worried that jurors were not going to be receptive to coming back and serving on juries. But in fact, the numbers are actually up. The attendance level is up. And I think in speaking to the members of the task force and the judges across the state that have been handling jury trials, it's in large part due to all the work that went in on the front end of making sure the courthouse was easy to navigate, that jurors were being made to feel safe, socially distanced, and that the court actually cared about making sure that they were comfortable going forward. So I know that a number of other circuits are getting ready to start jury trials both in May and June. So we'll keep you posted on that. The other item, Chief, was the suggested guidance for judges and attorneys for resolving discovery disputes has been approved, was submitted today with the materials, but will be up on the AOC website with the COVID task force documents. This is a one-page description of how to move some discovery disputes while we're waiting for civil to get moving again. Though I believe Judge Taylor, who is on the call, may be able to comment. I think Fulton County and some other counties are starting some virtual civil proceedings and trials. So that's my report, Chief. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for the work. I think Judge McClellan had a lot to do with that discovery sheet. It really is designed just to help the process move while everything else is being given higher priority. And it's not really unique to COVID. It could be a helpful tool even when we get past this stage. Two things I want to add. One, when we opened up jury trials in October of last year, I think my phone was ringing about once every other day. I think Justice LaGrua's phone was ringing with complaints about what judges were doing, or more importantly, what they were perceived to have been doing wrong as they were operating the courts. I have had 0 calls, not the first call since we opened up in April, I guess it was, maybe even March. We opened up in March. I have not had the first call. And instead, what I've been hearing is what Justice LaGrua has just shared with you, just a sense of appreciation for how hospitable the courts are as jurors and people who are coming into the courts are being treated. I hear reports about how they feel appreciated and how they've enjoyed the experience. So it's night and day. And whatever you're doing, keep it up. It's making a difference. And word is getting out to the communities. And so I do think that when those summons go out, people will be more inclined to respond favorably and do the work. So thank you and congratulations. The second thing is, in our last order that went out on April, we indicated that the deadlines in 17.750 and 17.750.1 for presenting cases involving detained individuals will be reimposed effective May 14th, which would be next month. So in the next order that would go out earlier in May, we expect to reimpose those deadlines effective May 14th. We're trying to make sure that we're pushing the ball forward appropriately. If that causes any undue hardship, we need to hear from you in advance of that. We tried to give you the more than 30 days notice than we promised. If there's some feedback that we need to factor in as we hit the green light on that in our next order, we need to hear on the front end. So that's what I wanted to say about that. At this point now, I'll turn to the Technology Committee. Judge David Emerson has a report there.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Of course, you have the report at tab 4. I want to especially express appreciation to Justice Boggs in pursuing the funding for JDEX. Without that funding, that very worthwhile project would have been lost to our juvenile courts. And it appears that we will be able to continue that. We are moving forward with the protective order registry in cooperation with GCIC. We've had a number of meetings on that, and I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to move that out, especially to the magistrate court very soon, because that's where we hope to start is with their bond orders. Other than that, I would mention that I hope that we can revisit and reinvigorate the criminal justice data exchange project and board. I have reached out to Terry Fisher, the director of GCIC, and I haven't heard back from her yet, but we hope to revisit the effort to improve cooperation between the branches and the agencies in order to more efficiently transmit criminal justice information. That's a big project, but I'm not going to give up on Georgia. I still think we can do it. So that's my report on the technology.
Thank you, Judge Emerson. Now you and I have had the privilege of working together for a long time, and I know your dedication, and you are absolutely invaluable. Thank you, sir. All right, Judge Doyle with the Strategic Plan Committee report.
Hello, good morning, everyone. The Strategic Planning Committee met most recently in March, and over the last year has continued to do a lot of work with the help from all the people from the Administrative Office of the Court who continue to keep all the things going. We have a written report that is in your materials. One of the things that is coming up on May 5th is a class that's going to be dealing with wellness and well-being that we have partnered with ICJE to put on. And I'm just going to let you read the report because I know we have other things that are more important to get onto, but I have one action item, and that really deals with the fact that, you know, over the course of the last year with the pandemic, a lot of our resources that might have been gone into implementing and pushing forward the strategic plan got diverted to dealing with the more emergent pandemic issues. And for that reason, the Strategic Planning Committee voted to request approval from the Judicial Council to extend our plan for 1 year. It is currently set, the current plan runs from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th of 2022. And we are asking for a 1-year extension through June 30th of 2023. I think this would align us with the executive branch's strategic planning cycle as well. And also just give us a little more time to work on some of these initiatives that got pushed to the side due to the pandemic. So with that, that is our motion from the committee, I guess.
Okay, and one point of clarification, once this is approved, assuming that it will you be working on a 4-year cycle going forward?
You know, that, I guess so, yes, potentially. You know, a lot of strategic plans are 3 to 5 years. And I know that with our courts and the executive branch, we do 4-year. So we would certainly, I don't recall us specifically deciding, oh, we want to be 4 years going into the future, but it's certainly something we are considering.
Well, I would recommend and suggest and think that'd be a good idea, frankly, if you wanted to make that a part of this motion, perhaps, unless you want to take it back and ponder over it.
Cynthia, do you want to ponder or do you want 4 years going forward?
Let's move forward with 4 years.
Sounds good. We will amend that to request not only an extension of this to 4 years, but to make the plan a 4-year one going forward.
All right, so that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Anybody opposed? Any voting members opposed to the motion as been presented? All right, that will stand approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of our report. Our next meeting is going to be July 19th.
Great. Thank you, Judge Doyle. And Judge Emerson again, workload assessment.
Thank you, Chief Justice. The committee remains busy. I do, at the end of my report, I will talk about an action item that I will request a vote from the council on. Staff has been collecting case count data. They provided me with the statistics this morning. The municipal courts are running a little bit behind. For your leadership, y'all are at 85%. Probate courts are at 92%. Juvenile courts are at 96%, have completed their case count. Magistrates are 93%. The state court is at 96%. And the Superior Court, my court, which usually lags behind, is at 98%. So I'm very proud of the Superior Court for getting their case counts reported. And then there's another issue that I'm going to continue to try to get in touch with the state bar on, and that is the need of the civil litigation bar to file their case filing information sheets, both initiation and disposition sheets. I want to continue to work with them and stress the importance of those sheets being correctly completed, because that information goes directly into the validity of our case count. Clerks rely on that in order to set up the case types when they're filed. The third item that I have relates to the action item. We have right now 4 requests for boundary studies. And many of you are already aware that the General Assembly, without any input from the judicial branch or the Judicial Council, has passed one specific circuit split in that Columbia County was split out of the Augusta circuit. But we do have four other items to look at. We have Burke County has asked for a boundary study. The Alcovy circuit has asked for a boundary study. We have a county in the Western Circuit that wants a boundary study, and possibly the Griffin Circuit. And I'm not aware of any other requests right now that we've received. In my view, well, the committee looked at this request, and candidly, we had a lot of requests for information that we just didn't have in particular from the Lieutenant Governor's office. And we viewed this process as something that we did not want to have these circuits going forward with splits like this without judicial branch input. So my position is that we need to stay involved and provide in our reports and our data to the legislators when they look at these circuit boundary splits. To that end, the committee recommends that the Judicial Council resume circuit boundaries, the circuit boundary study process starting on the first business day of May of this year. And we will use data other than 2020. I've studied the case counts both in my own circuit as well as I've looked at the reports from across the nation. It appears that the criminal cases dropped by around 33%, 32% in my county, but that's actually a much larger impact because what that is the unindicted felonies. And that includes our serious felonies, and the case weight system weights the serious felonies roughly 4 to 5 times what we weight routine felonies. And so that would have a very negative impact on what it looks like our case count is. So we will basically set aside the 2020 data, and we will use the data from 2017 to 2019. For 2022 requests, we would use, and that's all in the recommendation. I'm not going to bore you with the exact years. That's all there. But as I said, we're just setting aside 2020 case count data, and we would not reinstate the judgeship recommendations for this year. We would, of course, reinstate those next year. And that's the recommendation. It is in your materials, and that comes to the Judicial Council from a standing committee. I'm not aware that it requires a second.
Thank you, Judge Emerson. So I think everybody understands big picture. You know, we have been very careful to provide a very disciplined method and process. We do not purport to have a process that the legislature must subject themselves to, but we do offer it to them as a way to have a very thoughtful means of reaching decisions about boundary splits. And we think that's it's an important tool to make available, and this is a way to do that. So we have a motion, does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Is there anybody opposed? No voting members opposed. That will stand approved. Thank you, Judge, as always. And then we have a report. Don't think we have Judge Davis, but is Justice Bethel with us?
I'm here, Chief.
All right, Justice Bethel will give us a report on the Cybersecurity Insurance Implementation Committee.
Thank you, Chief. And any deficiencies in the report, I'll blame on Judge Davis. The difficult technical side of our task seems to be accomplished, and I want to give credit to the Judicial Council staff as well as IT staff from our court and several other courts across the state who have worked together to prepare a presentation that was given to a lot of insurance providers. We have the feedback from those providers so that we have an idea of what the scope and budgetary opportunities related to this project will be. And so I really am hopeful that probably within the next quarter, we'll be able to complete the work of the committee and provide a report and recommendation on securing cybersecurity insurance through the Judicial Council, but for the judicial branch. Beyond that, Chief, I would stand on our written report, which everybody can see at tab 7, and unless there are any questions, which I'm happy to try and field.
Well, I do want to reiterate what you told me, which was that the real detailed, I dare say, nerd work of the committee has been really benefited by Judge Walt Davis's engagement. He's
Well,
enjoyed getting into the weeds on this, and I think you said that he's been invaluable.
he has been invaluable. His subcommittee is going to take the data that we got back from the providers and feed that back into the full committee directly. So he's been very helpful in our presentation and otherwise. So I'm thankful to him and to, like I say, all the staff, the folks that know a whole lot about zeros and ones than I do.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. We are coming up just short of an hour. So I have 10:56. Let's take a quick 5-minute break and then we'll come back strong and knock out the rest of the agenda. Cynthia, when you leaving?
I'm leaving Saturday morning.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd be like, as soon as this meeting was over.
No, Vince has got fee arbitration today. So he's arbitrating for the state bar today.
Oh, okay. But he could meet you down there.
If he doesn't finish early, he will.
What's going on with Judge McCord?
I don't know. I was glad to see him join us. It was great.
Just don't know about his photo there.
Chief, has your newest colleague climbed the learning curve yet?
She's getting there. She's getting there. You know, it helps when you take her under your wing. It helps significantly.
I can hear you guys.
We trained her up right here, so that's good.
Yeah. No, the biggest issue with her is we've spread her so thin already. We've given her so many responsibilities, and she's done the legal work, but really been a great source of strength in all the administrative work.
You're too kind, Chief. You just like the cooking.
No, well, and she's pretty good. Those brownies were off the charts good. What did you say those were?
Salted caramel Kahlua brownies.
Yeah, do that again.
I knew I was disappointed we didn't get her for a while.
Mr. Chief Justice, I hear you talking about my photo.
We were talking about your photo.
I'll tell you how that happened. Bubba Samuels used to be on here, and during the pandemic, he grew all that facial hair. And if I tried to grow facial hair, people would be calling me Patches. And so I decided to pick something that could match Bubba.
Fair enough.
Judge McCord, as a classmate of yours from Georgia State University College of Law, I'm going to be quiet.
It sure is good to see you, my friend.
You're just throwing the towel on manhood. I get it. Well, I think we're substantially back. Maybe give it one more minute.
All right. I'm ready whenever you tell me go.
All right. Let's scroll down and see what we're looking like here. I don't know a way to pound a gavel via Zoom. If I scroll down, I see a substantial number of blocks still vacant, but maybe they've just closed their video down. So Ms. Clan, why don't you go ahead and get started? You have our attention to hear your report.
Thank you, Chief Justice. American novelist James Lane Allen said, "Adversity doesn't create character, it reveals it." Congratulations to all of you for your fearless leadership on the bench this past year. Jury trials are restarting and the wheels of justice are starting to turn, albeit a little slower at first. As Chief Justice Melton so eloquently stated in his State of the Judiciary address, justice and the rule of law cannot wait on a pandemic. And it didn't, and you didn't. The vaccines are being widely administered throughout Georgia, and we thank Governor Kemp for including court personnel on March 17th. I'm hearing from colleagues that court personnel are getting vaccinated, which makes me really happy and relieved. We can't afford to lose another judge, clerk, deputy, loved one, or friend. I've been fully vaccinated, yay, as have many of the AOC employees. The AOC hosted 2 vaccine clinics, courtesy of Kroger, on March 23rd and April 20th. Over 70 court personnel received doses of the Moderna vaccines. Shots in the arm were administered by Amanda Luke, the very capable pharmacist and wife of Ben Luke, our IT director. Shots were given to Chief Justice Melton, Justice Carla McMillan, Judge Sarah Doyle. It took a tab to get her here. And the staff from the State Business Court and other judicial guests. Judge Clyde Reese of the Court of Appeals wore his lucky baseball jersey to receive both his vaccines. Yay. Congratulations to Ken Hodges for hosting another successful vaccine clinic at the Nathan Deal Building last week. I think about 60 vaccines were administered, and the more shots in the arms, the better. Our Justice Needs Jurors PSA campaign kicked off on March 15th. We've been closely following the stats. To date, the top geographic areas for the Facebook campaign are in Atlanta, Macon, Savannah, Albany, and Augusta. We can see a 98% video completion rate, which means that people are watching the video. Top streaming devices are Roku, Samsung TV, and Amazon Prime. Impressions delivered by day are evenly spread Monday through Sunday, which is preferred to get a good mix of viewers across the campaign. We'll likely continue this campaign until we expend all the grant funds. We are very grateful to Judge Ken Hodges for his assistance in procuring these very funds. The legislative session ended on March 31st. As the presiding justice reported earlier, the Judicial Council's priorities, tolling of statutory speedy trial requirements following a judicial emergency, alternative locations for superior and state courts, bench trials, and expanded authority for accusations all achieved final passage with time to spare. Thank you to everyone, especially Tracy, Christopher, Cheryl, Robert, and our team who worked alongside all of you to move these bills through. The Judicial Council also had a successful budget cycle with all but one request receiving full funding, as reported by Justice Boggs. After a short break following Sine Die, we're now thinking ahead to the 2022 session and look forward to working with the legislation and budget committees over the summer. On February 24th, the AOC was co-sponsor for the annual Bar Media Judiciary Conference held virtually this year. Judge Susan Edeline hosted an excellent panel with Chief Justice, Justice LaGrua, and Chief Judge Brian Amaro, assisting the court's responses to the pandemic. Chief Judge Amaro did a masterful job describing the day-to-day struggles in the courts in this new pandemic environment. And since our last Judicial Council meeting, The AOC staffed a multitude of Judicial Council committee meetings, including the ad hoc committee on improving community access to legal resources, cybersecurity insurance implementation, technology, pictured here, and strategic plan. We thank Judge Tane Kell for speaking to us at our February virtual AOC staff meeting, Judge Washburn for speaking to us in March, and Judge Rashida Oliver in April. Personally hearing from judges helps the AOC staff stay energized and connected with your day-to-day work on the bench. We were thrilled that our friend, former state court judge and colleague on the Judicial Council, the Honorable Nancy Bills, was sworn in on February 22nd by Governor Kemp to be a Superior Court judge in the Rockdale Judicial Circuit. She will be an outstanding jurist. Congratulations are in order to Fulton Superior Court Shamila Williams, Fulton Probate Court Judge Kenya Johnson, and Magistrate Court Judge Cassandra Kirk for performing wedding ceremonies on Valentine's Day, mask and all, in spite of the pandemic. Truly, love conquers all. March was Women's History Month, and we posted daily profiles of our Georgia judges. This year, we asked them to name their mentors and lessons learned, which inspired all of us. Thank you to all the judges who participated. We've updated our judicial wellness and civics engagement web pages, so please visit when you have a chance and give us your feedback. And as an update, thanks for the many corrections you sent to us for our courts directory. We're making the final edits and it should be in the mail to you soon. It was a bit of a challenge for Bruce Shaw to collect all the changes, and of course, we'll expect more changes to come, but we're working through it. Our court directory online will keep you up with any additional changes, so please check it out on our website. That information is at your fingertips. Congratulations are in order to our future Judicial Council Chair and Vice Chair, PJ Namias and Justice Boggs, who will become Chief Justice and Presiding Justice, respectively, in July. Chief Justice Melton said during the State of the Judiciary, there are no two more able to take over. And Chief, the members of the Judicial Council participated in a short farewell video, which we'll give to you off camera as soon as this meeting ends. Thanks to all of you who participated in making this sweet video send off. And my special thanks and gratitude to Chief Justice Melton, who completes his 50th Judicial Council meeting today. You should get a darn medal for sitting through that many meetings. And some of that was before Zoom. Thanks for your dedicated service as technology chair and chairing the initiative to develop a pandemic bench book all those years ago. Talk about coming full circle with your service. I've served alongside you in state government for over 20 years, and it's been a true honor to support your work. I've never met a finer man or role model. You will be remembered as one of the finest judicial leaders of our time. Thank you, good luck, and best wishes on your next endeavor. And now, one of my favorite things to do, we welcome the newest members of the Judicial Branch family, our darling Judicial Branch babies. First up, Magistrate Court Judge Donarell Green's grandson. They're pictured in the middle with his sisters. AOC staffer Paula Myrick has a new princess granddaughter, Leah, who was born. And this furry fella, who might be actually related to the Auburn mascot. Now, how did he get in there? I'm just saying. The AOC exists to serve you, the members of the Judicial Council and Judiciary. Have a safe, productive summer, and let me know how we can continue to support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you for those kind words. I will say, you and I talked early on as you came on as director about the profile and approach of the AOC, and what you said, it really captures that in terms of being a support to the judicial branch agencies. And you've come along and led your team to do that. And I think we've benefited from your service. We've benefited from your support, and you've helped us all look better in front of our stakeholders. And on top of that, you've done it in a way that we just enjoyed being with you and count you as a friend. And we trust you, and we trust your staff, and just grateful for your leadership. So thank you very much. I'll give a brief report. We have our written report, but there are just 4 things I want to hit on real quick. I feel compelled to do this. First of all, from the State Bar standpoint, Dawn Jones is on our call. This will be her last meeting with us, I think, as president of the State Bar. And I want to thank Dawn for her friendship, her leadership. We go back a long way, and I want to welcome Elizabeth Fite to the role as president. She will do a great job taking the State Bar to the next tier. But I think we all owe Dawn a hand of appreciation and a hug of fellowship. Thank you, Dawn, for your great service. Second, you should anticipate a number of rules coming out. We have Justice Carla Wong McMillan taking over that role from Justice Peterson. We've learned a lot and are still learning a lot from this COVID process. We have a lot of emergency rules, some of which may come back around in some form of final version, but appreciate you working with us and Darren Enns, and who's been a great source of detail and structuring the rule process. But we expect that we will see some of those temporary rules become permanent in some form or fashion. So thank y'all for your input and helping us get there. Chief Judge Chris McFadden, this will be his last meeting as Chief Judge on the Court of Appeals. He has worked very quietly behind the scenes in ways that would not be apparent. And he's always been collaborative. He's always been responsive. I want to thank him for his service. I want to thank him for his role, his love and dedication of the law, his role and dedication to the judiciary. And of course, welcome Vice Chief Judge Rickman to the role as Chief Judge. We look forward to your ceremony coming up soon. And we'll be in great hands knowing that you will be the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals. So thank you. And just as we did before, I want to thank the governor and the legislature for their support in getting us through the pandemic, but also in supporting our legislative initiatives. So that's what I'll say there. I'll now turn to Chief Judge Chris McFadden to the Court of Appeals.
Thank you, Chief Justice, and thank you for those very kind words. The respect and the friendship is most assuredly mutual. The Court of Appeals has continued to be fully functional. As I've said before, our work lends itself very well to being done remotely. So in that sense, we as an institution have been fortunate. Our docket has started to reflect an increase in activity in the trial courts. We've seen a sharp uptick in applications for discretionary appeal and interlocutory appeal. The direct appeals, the appeals for plenary consideration are still pretty much steady, but we're watching that, and frankly, we anticipate that there'll be an increase there following on the increase of activity in the trial courts. We were beneficiaries of the COVID clinic that Ms. Clanton referred to, and we're grateful to that. We were also the beneficiary, as were a number of other court employees and some people in the general public, to a second clinic that was put on in the Judicial Center at the instance of the extraordinarily resourceful Judge Ken Hodges and the You Save It Pharmacy. I was able to get my second shot there, and I'm personally grateful to him because I had to drive to Cochrane from the first, as were many others. We began to discuss how we will proceed post-pandemic. I imagine that all of us, I know I personally, will be doing more of our work remotely because it works better than, frankly, I had realized. And I think that will enable us, I think, to cast a wider net for some of our hiring. In addition, Zoom arguments, we have some very real disadvantages, and frankly, I think lack most of the disadvantages of attempts to hold a trial by Zoom. We are looking forward to, we're in the process of purchasing and setting up the technology that will make it feasible for us to have a mixed argument. Somebody who has an office in Atlanta could drive in, and somebody who has an office in Judge Boggs's old circuit might decide to participate by phone. And we hope to have that available. And of course, as the Chief Justice intimated, we have elected unanimously presiding and Vice Chief Judge Brian Rickman to serve as our Chief Judge, and Judge Amanda Mercier to serve as our Vice Chief Judge. Our normal turnover is July 1st. We shifted our schedule to the 2-year term, ends in the summer at the beginning of the fiscal year. So I will be stepping down as Chief Judge at the same moment the Chief Justice does. I should emphasize, because a reporter just asked me, that I am not stepping down as a judge of the court. I am, in fact, running for re-election. But this is my farewell to the Judicial Council, and it has been a privilege. Anyone who has given me the slightest opportunity to work it into a conversation knows that my father was a trial judge for 20 years. And I practiced law for 25 years before I was a judge. So it was a heady experience for me some 5 or 6 years ago to attend my first Judicial Council meeting as an alternate and to be seated up at the head table. It has remained a heady experience. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve with you. And it has been no less a privilege and an honor to serve with those of you who are not judges, who regularly attend these meetings. I have very much missed being with you in person. I have missed the subtle electricity that you bring. I miss hearing about your labors by slow prudence and soft degrees to subdue our justice system to the useful and the good. You are vital reminders that many persons strive for high ideals. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge McFadden, Chief Judge McFadden. We have a report from the Business Court that will be given today by Judge Doyle from the Court of Appeals.
Hello, everyone. Judge Walt Davis sends his regrets that he could not be here today, and he asked that I give a very brief report. I don't know if you all know, but I am sitting by designation handling a business court case. Judge Davis says he's very excited to actually have a colleague to work with, even if it costs him a case of tab on a weekly basis. I will tell you, he said that there is nothing to report. They did not submit a written report because there is not much that has been changed. But I will tell you, they have a great staff. I work a lot with Angie Davis and Lynette Jimenez, and they are both top-notch individuals. The business court is running very smoothly because of their leadership. It is also a beautiful space. If you come to our court, I highly recommend you come to the 3rd floor, which is now open to the public, where I am located, and which is convenient for me to walk around the corner, but also to go in and see. They've got a great courtroom, great office space, and I think it's going to be a really good thing going forward. So with that, all is well at the business court. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're sitting by designation because Judge Davis was actually conflicted out, and the statutory mechanism is for me to appoint somebody. And I called you and asked you, would you be willing to take on, in addition to all your other duties, a high-level complex business case? And you said yes. So thank you, Judge Doyle.
You're welcome. Whether I will thank you will be left to be seen.
Council Superior Court Judges, Judge Brian O'Mara.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you, Chief. Mostly I'll be standing on our written report, but I do just want to say a couple of quick things. The first is just how impressed I am and how grateful I am for the work of my colleagues on the Superior Court bench all across the state for the way in which they are safely restarting jury trials. I'm hearing nothing but positive things, and boy, a lot of groundwork has been laid for this restart, and it's really going very smoothly, knock on wood. And in addition to that, I'd like to thank Shannon Weathers, our executive director, and Charles Miller, our budget director, for all of their work with me over the course of this past year during this pandemic. They have been an extraordinary source of strength and support and insight and guidance, and just really couldn't have done it this year without them. And I appreciate them very much, and I want them to know that. And I think this body needs to know how important they are to the work that we do. Additionally, I'd like to thank Judge Bill Hamrick and Judge Bert Guy, our legislative chair and vice chair, for their exemplary work this session. As Justice Namias was pointing out, this has been an especially successful session, given all of the COVID-19 task force initiatives and other bills that needed attention and guidance. And my team has been extraordinary. And that really brings me to a special recognition, and that is of Emily Youngo, our Director of External Affairs, who directed our legislative efforts on the staff side and expertly sent the right people to the right problem at the right time over and over again throughout the course of the session. In particular, I'd like to recognize Emily's work on House Bill 635, which demonstrated the breadth of this skill set. We've been so impressed with Emily, and we wish her well as she leaves us and joins the Supreme Court staff. Eventually, we'll forgive the Supreme Court for taking her, but it's just too soon. Where she will be joining Justice Namias, I believe in July, as the Deputy Court Executive. Chief Justice, let me just take this last moment to thank you for your leadership. It's been just a real honor to work with you. It's been an honor to work with the entire Judicial Council over the course of this year, to work with your staff on the AOC, your legislative team. Everybody has been just fantastic, amazing, warm, helpful, and effective. And so I can't say enough good things. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Judge Amaro, and thank you for your energy. You're inexhaustible, it seems.
That's true.
But thank you, sir. Council of State Court Judges, Judge Wes Taylor.
Well, thank you, Chief Justice. We too will stand largely on our report. I will say that we are very proud in state court that we have been hard at work and continue to do so, and jury trials are a reality around the state. And so I know a lot of my colleagues are very excited to see jurors back in the courthouses again. So that is a great thing. I will say that as well, and I will echo the comments of those before, appreciate all of your leadership that you have exhibited throughout this. This will be my last, unless you have another emergency meeting, this will be my last Judicial Council meeting. I leave you in the very capable and colorful hands of Al Wong. I know y'all are looking forward to that. He's going to be awesome in this role. And so I know we're all looking forward to his leadership. But last thing I'll say is what I have really appreciated in this role has been the collaboration amongst all the classes of court while I have been on the Judicial Council and served as president. It has been amazing, and I think we have accomplished much together that where maybe we have not all been on the same page previously for various reasons, but through when it comes down to it and we get to the important things, we've worked with all classes of court and we've worked all together for the common good. I'm very proud of that. And I'm appreciative of your leadership, Chief Justice, in making that happen.
Thank you, Judge Taylor, and I say the same of you. It's been a real pleasure. Council of Juvenile Court Judges, Judge Lisa Jones.
Good morning. In addition to standing on our written report, I just wanted to make a few remarks, and I think Judge Taylor basically was reading my mind as he was going through his thoughts on things. This is also my last general session meeting, and I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the relationships that I've formed these last 2 years, and what a great experience and honor it has been to serve with you. A big thank you for everyone that helped out with JDEX. We are very excited about this project funding and believe this to be invaluable to the juvenile court judges. Judge Price will be sworn in as president of the Juvenile Courts Council at our spring seminar, which is, we think, going to be a big in-person success. And he will continue to serve on the council along with Judge Hurd, and I'm sure we'll have a great experience with you all, just as I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Jones. Council of Probate Court Judges, Judge Kelly Walk.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all so much. In addition to standing on our report, we too want to thank you for everything. As everyone is painfully aware, we are we experienced quite a year, and we lost a number of people. And Justice Melton, you were amazing in making everyone feel like their situation was unique, and hearing them and supporting them and doing the best for them. We are just freshly off of our training meeting last week, and or yesterday. It's been a long day, and we are looking forward to getting back to work and working with all of you as jury trials pick back up. And I couldn't have done this last year, and this too is my last meeting, without the amazing Kevin Holder. And I can't sing his praises loud enough in enough venues, but he's an amazing person and an amazing executive director. And I just want to say thank you to him and to all of the other chiefs for all of their help and their suggestions and their work. And I wish you all the best of luck as things start back to normal.
Thank you. I think if we've learned anything else, we've learned how much the probate court judges are really in the trenches, and they're doing the people's work. Thank you. Council of Magistrate Court Judges, Judge Quinn Casper.
Thank you, Chief. We will stand on our report, but we've had some things happen since we submitted our report, so I will just kind of let everybody know what's going on. We are saying farewell to TJ Hudson, who we all love and will miss extremely or a lot, but he has got other things going on, and we wish him well and success in everything that he aspires to. I also wanted to thank our legislative chairs for the Magistrate Council, who worked tirelessly during this session to have our salary bill passed. So Judge Brandon Bryson and Brendan Murphy both just went above and beyond for our council. So I wanted to recognize them. We are planning we're about to attend our first in-person meeting. That's actually going to be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. So we hope that is a major success. It's not going to have as many people as we normally do, but that's due to COVID. It is our first in-person. So we're excited about that. And lastly, I just wanted to say thank you to you, Chief. I haven't gotten to work with you for very long, but I see the impression that you've left on this council and everything that you've done for everyone on this council. And I wish you well, and I look forward to working with everybody in the future.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you very much. Council Municipal Court Judges, Judge Willie Weaver Sr.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to report, in addition to the written report we submitted, that the municipal court has been functional and functioning since the pandemic started. You may remember, all of you, that early on in the pandemic, the municipal court came up with some best practices for municipal court for COVID-19, and a lot of courts in the state, before we got our task force off the ground, looked at those and adopted most of those to get started and to keep working in the courts. With respect to the case count and the report on the case count, municipal court has approximately 380 courts, a lot more than most classes of court. We are working diligently on making sure those numbers come in because we know they're important. But just be reminded that we have a lot more courts and a lot more reaching out to do, but we're going to get those numbers in. Mr. Chief Justice, I submitted a formal letter to you based upon my experience with working with you in the Judicial Council. It's been a very, very humbling experience. I started off being very proud of being on the council. Then it became threatening and terroristic when the pandemic came, but it made all of us have a stronger character, and we worked more diligently and harder together. And of course, everybody on the council know how many additional meetings that we had. And I thank the presiding justice. I served on the legislative committee, and I learned, of course, more than I gave on that committee, but it was well worth all the time and resources and meetings. The AOC and LaShawn Murphy has been excellent in helping my council and me as a member of the Judicial Council. And all the members have been really nice, kind, and giving, and that's very, very much appreciated. Lori Duff will be taking over as president of the municipal courts. And of course, she worked with me the entire year, and she's going to do a great job, as she's always done. And I appreciate her coming on after me. And before I wrap up, Mr. Chief Justice, I would like, if you would allow me to recognize one of my great judges, Judge McCord, for a minute.
Chief, I came today purely out of deference and deep respect for you. And I wanted to say to you in your last meeting, one of my very clear memories of you after Justice Hines passed away, we were standing at an Atlanta Lawyers Club meeting, and you stood in front of everybody and said that you felt like it was important to be emotionally generous and vulnerable and honest. And I want to tell you on behalf of the some 380 municipal court judges in this state that we love you. You are deeply respected for your humility, your kindness, your grace, and the strength with which you have uniquely led this state for the last year and a half through this pandemic. I hope that you understand how deeply loved you really are and how much you will be missed.
Thank you, Judge. And your text throughout the year convey that as well. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chief Justice, that concludes our report. Thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership and friendship.
Yes, sir. Ms. Dawn Jones, State Bar.
I think it's very appropriate that I follow my dear friend, Judge Matt McCord, in the remarks she just gave, because I certainly echo those. Good morning. Our written report on behalf of the State Bar of Georgia will be included in your supplemental materials that you'll receive in the near future. In the meantime, please accept this verbal report that I'm providing. The State Bar saw success under the Gold Dome this session with the passage of the Uniform Mediation Act, as mentioned earlier by Presiding Justice Namias. After many hours spent by dedicated section volunteers regarding our remote online notary bill, that legislation was ultimately tabled in the Senate just prior to midnight on sine die. However, the bill did pass in both chambers, and next year we'll only need an agree vote on both sides once legislators can reach a compromise on whether to exclude residential real estate transactions from the bill. Also, the State Bar's Advanced Psychiatric Directive bill was filed after the crossover day deadline this year, but it will be ready to make its way through the process early on in the 2022 session. We appreciate our collaboration with all of the court counsels throughout the session, particularly the Council of Probate Court Judges, who always work closely with our fiduciary section on a number of issues unique to those courts, to their courts. Also relevant to Presiding Justice Namias' earlier report and comments, our annual meeting will include a CLE offering on the timely topic of the importance of lawyer legislators to hopefully motivate and promote more members of our bar to serve in the Georgia legislature. And for those who don't know, our annual meeting will be occurring this year on June 10th through 13th at Wild Dunes Resort in Isle of Palm, South Carolina. It will be a hybrid meeting, our first ever, which means there will be an opportunity to attend in person with social distancing, masking, and other appropriate COVID-19 related precautions in place, and virtual opportunities for folks who are not comfortable or are not otherwise able to attend in person to do so virtually. The room reservations are currently open. They're happening now. And last report from our Director of Meetings, Michelle Garner, we were almost 60% booked. So please book your room reservations as soon as possible if you plan to attend in person. And registration for our annual meeting will open at the end of this month. So please stay tuned for those emails. Also, I wanted to update the Judicial Council on the annual 2-day conference that the State Bar of Georgia Executive Committee holds, and the senior staff of the State Bar of Georgia staff hold with the Supreme Court of Georgia every year. We held that conference on June 15th and 16th, just a week ago, and it culminated in a joint meeting for several hours that confirmed and continued the solid, supportive, and reciprocal relationship that we, the State Bar of Georgia, have enjoyed historically with the Supreme Court over the years. As has been repeated multiple times today, we've all had to face personal, professional challenges and losses. The State Bar of Georgia, with its approximately 110 staff members as of my start of the bar year, worked remotely, supporting 52,000 members of our bar virtually, learning very much how to adapt and how to be flexible when necessary to continue to provide the same level and type of support that we have provided to you pre-pandemic. We've had some unusual challenges in addition to the pandemics. We had a new executive director search and had the loss of Jeff Davis after 6 years of serving with the State Bar. And after more than 3 decades of serving with the State Bar, we lost our COO, Sharon Bryant. We now have, as you all know, Damon Elmore, who I believe is attending this meeting. There he is, as our executive director, and we have a new COO as who is Sarah Shelf, and we appreciate this new leadership. And again, facing these challenges and rising to them. The State Bar of Georgia does not take these relationships with the Supreme Court or with this Judicial Council for granted. We thank Chief Justice Melton. I thank him personally. I did so in the coffee toast, although I didn't remember to have a cup of coffee when I did my video, so apologize for that. But I am certain I will have another opportunity to speak personally and with a little bit more time about the leadership and my appreciation of the State Bar of Georgia, the leadership that has been provided this year by Chief Justice Melton. I would be remiss if I didn't also thank Justices Peterson and Warren for the leadership that they've provided, serving as liaisons from the Supreme Court of Georgia to the Executive Committee of the State Bar of Georgia. On behalf of the State Bar of Georgia, its Executive Committee and Board of Governors, we thank you all for the opportunity to work together to improve the laws governing our justice system and the practice of law in Georgia. Lastly, I'd like to thank Elizabeth Veit, President-elect, who has worked, as I understand it, tirelessly on one of the subcommittee task force, COVID task force led by Justice LaGrua, and Christine Butcher Hayes, who has served as our director and continues to serve as a director of legislative affairs. I believe Elizabeth had a conflict this morning and wasn't able to attend this meeting, but I know the State Bar of Georgia, when I pass the baton at the annual meeting in 2 months, I know the State Bar of Georgia is in great hands. I appreciate this opportunity to work with such amazing leaders and could not have picked a better group with which to rely during this incredibly challenging time. Thank you, Cynthia Clanton. Thank you, Tracy Mason, for keeping me on task. And I look forward to supporting you all for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Council of Accountability Court Judges, Judge Kathy Gosselin.
Chief Justice, this is Taylor Jones. I don't believe Judge Gosselin was able to attend today's meeting, but I will report on behalf of CACJ and primarily stand on our written report with a note that it focuses on our efforts specific to training for these past months of February and March. And also take this opportunity on behalf of CACJ, as well as all of Georgia's 169 accountability courts, to thank you, Chief Justice, for your support of our courts over these past years. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Jones. We brag on y'all all the time, every chance we get. Commission on Dispute Resolution, Ms. Tracy Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice. And we do have a report which we'll stand on, but I have a couple of remarks. The Commission would like to extend a thank you to the Judicial Council and State Bar of Georgia for their continued support of the Uniform Mediation Act. As Presiding Justice Namia stated earlier, it was a very long journey, but we are fortunate to have a dedicated team of supporters. And we appreciate the efforts of so many, including Rusty Sewell and Christine Butcher-Hayes from the State Bar, and of course, Senator Kennedy for sponsoring the bill and Representative Leverett for carrying the bill in the House. Mr. Chief Justice, we want to thank you also for your leadership. We wish you the best, and we really hope that you'll consider adding neutral registration to your professional portfolio in the future. So good luck, and we will miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And for the career advice too, thank you. Council Superior Court Clerks, Mr. Mike Holloman. Or is Ms. Tina Robinson there? I thought I saw Mr. Holloman. All right. Commission on Professionalism, Ms. Carlise Greer.
Good morning, Chief Justice. We do have a written report, but I'd like to highlight a couple of things. The suicide awareness program that you all have heard lots about is finally going to take place on April 30th, virtually via Zoom. I would be remiss if I did not thank a lot of people, starting with you, Chief Justice Melton, for your support of this program. It's been well received. We've gotten some positive feedback from bar members who appreciate your taking leadership on this issue. I want to thank our planning team, all of the panelists, staff at the AOC who are helping with logistics. I won't name names today because I know I may miss some, but many of them are listed in the written report, and I'd ask you to take a look at that. Currently, as of this morning, we have 1,180 people registered. I'm really excited that we have gotten over 20 questions from folks who've registered. The Commission often offers an opportunity for people who are attending our CLEs to ask questions in advance, and this is the most number of questions that we've received. We've received lots of very thoughtful questions, and people sharing things that are of concern to them. And so we have a great group of panelists. They're going to be engaging. Although it's a serious topic, I think we'll have some lighthearted moments that will leave everybody uplifted and inspired to continue to help ourselves and help each other as we begin to normalize the conversation around suicide. And so I just want to thank everyone who is assisting with that. There is still time to register. Registration is open through next Wednesday, April 28th. And so if you have not already registered, we'd encourage you to do so if your schedule permits. And also remind you to please share the information with those in your network. I think you'll find that people appreciate that we're starting to have this conversation. I also wanted to let you know that in our upcoming June Bar Journal, we will have an article discussing the March CLE that took place on March 19th. We had about 1,600 people to participate in that CLE, and I'll do a little bit of a write-up on that. We'll also have a special feature in the June Bar Journal, so I'd ask you all to take a look at that when it comes out. And it'll be out in the blink of an eye because time is certainly going by very, very quickly. I want to thank Justice LaGrua, who has just jumped on board and given her assistance and help as our new advisor to the Commission. We have projects going on that she is currently assisting with, and I want to thank her. I do anticipate that the Commission will we actually have it scheduled, We will have at least one more CLE before the end of the fiscal year. Justice Bethel has agreed to be our special guest speaker. Tabitha Ponder will be moderating a panel on pro bono, and one of our commission members, Pat Logan, will be the program chair and moderate a panel on ethics and professionalism for us. So we're looking forward to that, and I'll send more information out about that in May after our April 30th CLE, but just please be on the lookout for it, since we may not get together again before August. And last but certainly not least, on behalf of the commission, I want to thank you, Chief Justice Melton, for your service and for your leadership to the commission. I'm grateful that we'll have a chance to tell you more in person on June 4th when we gather for our next commission meeting, but I would be remiss if before the Judicial Council and your peers, I did not say thank you for all that you have done to support professionalism in Georgia during your tenure and the work of the commission, and allowing me to try some of my new and somewhat scary ideas from time to time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Greer. Just a quick word on the suicide awareness. This really will be one of those programs that as you sit through, you'll be thinking, gosh, this is something that would be good for somebody or this group. If we could think of who those people are on the front end, we'd all benefit, and they'd benefit for sure. Council of Court Administrators, Ms. Robin Rooks.
Good morning, Mr. Chief Justice. We largely stand on a report with just a few comments. In our continuing efforts to provide educational program that advances the administration of justice, we held our spring conference this last March. The theme was Waves of Change, How Courts Navigate Uncharted Waters. Conference speakers focused their presentations on the issues and challenges facing court managers as they adapt to the rapid changes caused by the pandemic, while at the same time focusing their primary goal of maintaining operational continuity. We also focused on the unique opportunities presented by the pandemic that could assist court managers in discovering more innovative ways to become efficient and resourceful. I would like to invite everyone to visit our website and take a listen at our podcast series in recess. Our next podcast is going to be about the things that court managers have encountered in presenting jury trials. With that, on behalf of the GCCA, we want to thank you for your leadership and support. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. ICJE, Mr. Ashworth.
Yes, sir, Chief Justice. We have nothing to add to our written report we've submitted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. JQC, Mr. Chuck Bourne.
Chief Courtney Veal is on the phone and will be reporting.
Okay. Ms. Veal?
Perhaps not. Let's move on.
All right, I know Mr. Boring had to depart, so. All right, so we have some members who are departing, as we have heard already. In the interest of time, I won't say all that's on my mind with respect to each one of these folks, but they are the foundation of much of what is good within not just the Judicial Council, but within the judiciary as a whole. These are stalwarts. They are great public servants. They do their jobs and take on anything else that is asked of them, and whatever comes to mind is a good idea that's just something that would be helpful. We have Chief Judge McFadden of the Court of Appeals. I already shared with you some of the thoughts I had about his quiet dignity and cooperative and collaborative spirit behind the scenes. We will wish him well. We thank him for his service, and he's laid the groundwork for Judge Rickman as he moves forward. Judge Brian Amaro, Judge Amaro has already volunteered for other duties. So just when he's finished with this, He is taking on, tell me, Judge Romero, all that you've already taken on for next year. I think strategic planning, and that you're involved with the mental health. He came to me early on and said, anything I could do to you to help, I want to help. I want to help you have a successful year. He's been true to that. So thank you, Judge Romero. Judge Bagley, in Forsyth, Judge Bagley and I have had a couple of conversations throughout the course of the year. Every time I've spoken with him, I've been impressed with the level of thoughtfulness that he has exercised in how he's been running his court. He's been a steady presence in our body. He's been working with the Superior Court judges for some time now in providing leadership and consensus. And so, Judge Bagley, I do want to thank you personally for all your great work. Judge Wesley Taylor, you mentioned what it means for the state court judges to really have jury trials as a reality. And the state courts are, we can't overestimate, I should say, the role that the state courts play with jury trials. But you've been such a thoughtful presence. You have given so much intelligent feedback. You've asked a lot of questions that we hadn't thought about that we continue to try to answer and solve. And for the ability to think ahead, we thank you. And we thank you for your willingness to say yes at every opportunity. Wish you well. Thank you so much. I do think Judge Hudson has joined us, but Judge TJ Hudson has served as president of 2 different councils. And he bails out to try to take on even greater responsibility. So that tells you a little bit about how that man is wired. He's another one of those who talks to me behind the scenes and says, what can I do to help you have a successful year? I don't need people to help me have a successful year, but it's so comforting. What I need is people to help us get the job done. And he's been one of those people. Every one of y'all have been that kind of person. So Judge Hudson, thank you for your service. Thank you for your heart of service. Thank you for your friendship. Judge Willie Weaver, what a dude. Came in early on and took on additional work for best practices before we were even thinking about best practices. I don't know if he thought that would be a tool that would be useful for others, but it certainly has been. But it says something about how he goes about his business. And, we won't see the end of his service anytime soon. So Judge Weaver, thank you for your cooperative nature. Thank you for your thoughtfulness, and thank you for your service. And Don Jones, I've already spoken of you, and we're just buddies, and that above all else. So thank you, Ms. Jones, for your year as president. We have our next meeting. We do have a emergency meeting set for May. I've got some more thoughts I'm going to share before we close, but our May meeting will just be for the purposes of going over our next emergency meeting. I'm gonna get in and out of that, and that will be the end of that meeting. I'm gonna turn it over to the PJ real quick just to discuss what the meeting schedule might look like going forward, and then I'll wrap up with some closing thoughts. So PJ.
Thank you, Chief, and we'll try to make this quick. The council generally meets when we don't have a million emergency meetings, and we're going to have one on May 4th, but we've slowed that number of emergency meetings down. Our general sessions like this one are normally in mid-August, early December, mid-February, and late April. Those are not quite quarterly, but we work around the council meetings and school breaks and things like that. What we found, I think, is, these remote meetings sometimes work pretty well, and they save a lot of you some very significant travel time, which we want to be conscious of. They don't work particularly well for the August meeting, where we do have the report of the JWAC committee on new judgeships and do multiple presentations and rounds of voting. That was pretty difficult to handle when we did it remotely. And we also lose the benefit of our in-person discussions and networking on the margins of the meetings and at lunches, and sometimes even the day before or later in the day. So the thought we've had, as I've talked to Cynthia and others, is we will try to have 2 meetings a year in person. The August meeting, at which we have a lot of new members and also do the JWAC work and have reports from the legislative and budget meetings that are done in July. And then our April meeting, this meeting, which is the departing members and a lot of reports on what happened during the legislative session. But the meeting in early December and mid-February will be remote. The only thing we're trying to lock in today is that we will have our next general meeting on August 13th, which is scheduled for Columbus, that will be an in-person meeting. We will have some arrangements for social distancing. The space is big enough, but the plan is to do that meeting in person, and then we would do the next 2 meetings remotely, and the April 2022 meeting live. If you have any thoughts about that or concerns or input, there's time to share it with me or Cynthia, but we wanted to let you know that's our plan for the next year. So I don't know if anybody has any initial concerns, but if not, we wanted to let you know that's the way we're headed.
So anybody have any thoughts about that? Might save you some travel. Okay. Anybody? In recognizing our outgoing members, I skipped over 2 who should not have been skipped over. One is our friend Judge Lisa Jones, who leads the Council of Juvenile Court Judges. And if you're involved in juvenile court work, you know that's ministry work. That's the work. Not that none of us leave our hearts on the table or at home when we go into work, but they engage fully in trying to shape lives and bring everything they have to the business. And she leads with her heart. She's led us with her heart, and she's been a great asset to everything that we've tried to do. And so on behalf of us and the way you've represented the juvenile courts, Ms. Jones, Judge Jones, thank you. And thank you for your service. And then Judge Kelly Walk, I did not mean to skip over her by any stretch of the imagination. We've had a lot of conversations about how to navigate marriages and guns, and those 2 really shouldn't be in the same conversation too often. But she's been in the trenches and had some legislative challenges, and we've been able to game plan and deal with all those challenges, and I think successfully. But her leadership with the probate court judges, especially during this really tough time of how the COVID pandemic has impacted those judges, you've been a steadying force. So thank you, Judge Walk, for your service. Here's what I want to say to you guys as I kind of prepare to move on. When I came onto this court 16 years ago, our court had gone 13 years without any change in its composition. That had been the longest sitting body of judges at the appellate level in the country. Prior to my arrival, the judges that I knew to be very harmonious had not been harmonious. They had gone to battle several times. They had fallen out with one another, but ultimately they came to be one. And so when I came onto the court, their message to me was, hey, we got a good thing going on here. Don't mess it up. What I want to tell you right now is we've got a great thing going. We've made it through this pandemic. Even though we were not able to be in person, somehow we've grown closer together. And I think we've grown closer together because we have a fuller appreciation of the talent, the varied talent that exists within this body. We've got people that can go into the weeds on things and crunch numbers. We got people who love technology. We have our various assignments based on the courts that are represented. We've got a AOC that's unprecedented in its strength and dedication and dedication to serving us and making us look good and do what we need. We have state bar leadership. We've got the best working relationship with the clerks that we've had. There's talent. There's talent across the board. And I think we have come to appreciate and recognize just how wide that talent is. And everybody in the roles that they serve to a person is dedicated, completely dedicated, ready to get back to the full scope of everything that's assigned to us. So we have talent, we have dedication, and then we just have true friendship. And so we have a special thing here, and it's real. And because we appreciate the talent, the dedication, and the friendship, I fully believe that we operate now in an environment of trust, openness, and collaboration. And with that, we can face any other challenge that might come our way. I don't believe any of the challenges that will come will be nearly as big as the challenges that we have just overcome or in the process of overcoming. We'll be able to maximize on opportunities that we would not be able to capitalize on. We'll be able to synergize our energies. We'll be able to do all kinds of things because we operate in a spirit of truth, openness, and collaboration. And so what I want to say to you is, as we move forward, let's hold on to this. It's special. It's a powerful tool. It's the most powerful tool we have, frankly. And as new members come on, whether they're new directors, new chief justices, new presidents of the state bar, let's tell them, don't mess this thing up. Let's not mess this thing up. And if you have a problem with anybody, if something happens that doesn't feel right, then let's resort to PUTP. PUTP, pick up the phone. And in some instances, I might even say PUTDP, but pick up the phone, call, talk to one another. We are not in an environment where we're not expected to disagree. We are expected to disagree, but we're expected to be able to work things out. And we have the trust, openness, and collaboration to do that. I value what we have here. I'm so grateful for every opportunity that you have given me to be somewhat useful. I'm grateful to Presiding Justice Namias for making me better, for making our court better. I hope that you will extend to him and Justice Boggs every bit of the courtesy that you've extended to me, as I know they will to you. You have honored me, and you are a highlight of my professional career. So thank you very much. And with that, let's adjourn.
Well, as we sign off, it's very hard to give a standing ovation over Zoom, but let's do our best to do that.